Okay, my name is Bob Mitchell, and I want you to turn to the person next to you and tell them you love them. One thing that all of us have learned is we can't do it ourselves. You got to drop the pride barrier, and you got to be humble, and you can't be humble and prideful at the same time. You turn to your young one and you say you love them. You turn to your sister and you say you love them. I'm here basically to give you my testimony and tell you that being tough wasn't tough enough. I thought I was a tough guy in the old days. I fought in martial arts in the days of Chuck Norris. Knuckle to knuckle, foot to foot. If you've seen the Karate Kid, I was the bad instructor in that. If a guy come up to me and told me he had a bad knee, I'd tell him to bow out because I'm taking you down. I lived my life as an intimidator. Just like a lot of people here think that they've got to be tough and put this rock in front of their hearts and not show any humbleness or love. That's the problem with the youth today. They're brought up thinking they've got to be tough all the time and not show any feelings for anybody. Well, later on in my life, I found out, it was really, I got into this thing where, I thought that I had to show no mercy to anybody I fought. I intimidated people just like the devil intimidates everybody here daily. I made them forget they might have the knowledge to beat me if I wasn't as good as them. But I intimidated them. The devil intimidates you daily. He tells you that you don't have a chance, that God isn't going to forgive you again. I'm here to tell you that God is there every day, every hour. We as Christians, we've got to push back this thing called backsliding. That word backsliding, as far as I'm concerned, doesn't exist because we have to, every time we drop to our knees, we should do a rededication to Christ daily because we aren't strong and we sin daily. This thing saying, oh, you know what, I think I'm backsliding. That's, oh, come on, that's a cop-out. God wants to hear from us daily. As we sin daily, we've got to give it back to Him daily. It's not no easy thing to stay right every day because we're only human. And the devil, one thing the devil's going to do, he's going to use our families and our kids as a tool to get to us. You can be on a good walk with Christ, but the thing is as soon as you're intimidated with something with your kids. Myself, when I first came to the Lord, I couldn't even go to one of my kids' basketball games because I found myself jumping up and screaming, hey, coach, get him in there. And then my wife would go, what are you doing? But I'm only human. I can remember in the very beginning, my wife, this is crazy, and I'm going to get right on to the testimony now. I fought in those days where I was known as the intimidator, and they used to call me animal. And I don't eat raw meat. Really, give me a break. But the thing is I thought that I had to act tough. And the problem with this is that eventually I started thinking that that's the way I really was. But down inside, I knew that there was a heart and that I did love. I loved my family and I loved my friends, but when it came to anybody else, I couldn't smile half the time. People would come up to me and say, are you pinning me? Are you giving me some looks, man? What are you doing? And you know what? I wasn't pinning them. I got where I couldn't even smile, and I was always kind of glaring at people. But that's the price that I paid being an intimidator. I played a role when I fought. But the problem was when I quit fighting and got married, I still carried this thing in me. If I was pinned back in a line at a hospital and I had my son in my arms, I'd tell him, shut his eyes, we're going in. And I'd kick that emergency door open and I'd be in there and say, he fell and hit his head. And I'd have an emergency room right now. Now that's being intimidating. Once in a while, I'd find out that somebody would jump right back at me, and they would basically let me know that they kind of figured me out, and I'd pull back. But I'll tell you, there was a price. When I found my wife, she pulled me out of that intimidated state a little bit. But then there was a time. My dad died at 56. My mother died at 61 of cancer. Then I was raising my niece, which they were raising, and she was about 17 then. Well, I lost contact of her for a few years, and she disappeared, and then she came back into our lives later on. At that time, I had my oldest boy, and he was a good kid. But the thing is I still was playing this role. I couldn't get this tough guy image out of myself. It was about me. I was my own God. It was about pride, and I didn't care who knew it. As far as I was concerned, if you didn't like me, I didn't care. But guess what? Inside, I was lost. I was totally lost. I thought I was my own God, and I walked it daily. But then all of a sudden, my niece, who I had raised for a while, she had an aneurysm, and she was in Long Beach Memorial, and I had to pull the plug on her. I had to pull the plug on her, and I loved her so much. 6 months later, I had my nephew living with me. He needed a kidney, and he was ready to die. My wife, she went and she had some cancer tests done, and all of a sudden the doctor comes in and says, your wife has uterine cancer. But it's going to be okay. She had a hysterectomy, and he came back out, and he says, I'm sorry, but we just found ovarian cancer. She may have 6 months to live. And me, the big tough guy, the big karate guy, what is this all about? Every situation in my life, I wasn't afraid of anybody. But instantly, God just hit me right between the eyes. I just couldn't take it no longer. I had went to the Harvest Crusade just a couple weeks prior. And I saw everybody go around in the field, and I said, you know what? I don't know about this. Half of these people, maybe, I don't know, maybe half of them, maybe 3/4 of them, maybe they're real for real, but you know what? I'm just not ready right now. About a week later, a friend of mine at work, his name was Frank, and he was used to live in Boyle Heights, and he was a shooter in a gang there, and he accepted the Lord. This guy was on fire for Christ. And he knew that I went to, when I was really young, he knew that I went to Bible school and stuff, and I did believe in God. And he said, you know what, you gotta give it to God. And I said, Frank, get that Bible rap and just get it away from me. I don't want to hear no Bible rap. Just stay away from me. And every day, Frank kept on bothering me because he knew that I was hurting inside, and I needed something besides self. Myself was gone. The old God that I carried, I thought I was my own God for a long time, and I carried basically carried the ball for the devil a lot of years. But when that doctor said my wife only had 6 months to live, it was over. All of a sudden, God put me down on my back. Look it up. I went to my nephew. Here he is in the other room. He's on dialysis every day, man. He's waiting for a kidney, and he's going, God, you need God. You need God, Uncle Bob. Then I thought about Frank at work.